Hi guys, Matikela, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I also want to stop pretending we don't see the problem because the issue here is not confusion. The issue is construction. We are being presented with what we are being represented, what we are being presented with is not a naturally unfolding chain of evidence. No, that's not the fact. It is a story assembled after the fact, stitched together piece by piece, hoping the court will accept inference as proof. And that's where reasonable doubt lives. That's exactly where reasonable doubt is like, bye bye. Let's start with the most basic question that any serious case must answer. Who knew whom? Not who might have known someone else, not who shared a contact, not who existed in the same universe. Who actually knew whom? Because the state tells us these IQs acted as a group, coordinated, deliberated, functioned as a unit. They functioned as a unit. But when we look for the proof of that group, it disappears into thin air. There are no direct calls between Danzi and accused number 3. No messages between Danzi and accused number 4. No communication between Danzi and accused number 5. Absolutely nothing. Yet Baloyi expect us South Africans to accept Lomsangani. And yet we are expected to believe that these people planned and executed a serious crime together. That is not evidence. That is an assumption. Now listen carefully, because this is where the case begins to wobble. The state wants to replace direct association with something far weaker, a common contact. They are saying these people didn't talk to each other, but they all spoke to someone else. So there is someone common they know. And they want us to believe that is a crime. That is not coordination, Moss, is it? That is not planning, Moss, is it? That is absolutely not conspiracy, or is it? It is where you start like being, Maloy, are you for real right now? If that were the legal standard, then millions of innocent people would suddenly become criminally linked simply because they knew each other or they know the same person. Courts do not convict on social overlap, guys. It can't be. And Ubaloy knows this. That's why this is so annoying. They convict on proof of collaboration. And that proof is missing in the entire situation, Gabaloy. Now, let's talk about coordination because crimes don't commit themselves, okay? Coordination requires communication. It requires planning. It requires confirmation. It requires adjustment. So here is the unanswered question that hangs over this entire case like a storm cloud. How do 5 people carry out a coordinated act without communicating? No calls before, no messages during, no confirmation after, no trial. Criminals leaves traces. Even careful ones do, guys. Otherwise, people would not be getting arrested. But here, their coordination is alleged, not demonstrated. And when coordination is alleged without explanation, reasonable doubt is automatic. That is what is happening. Then comes the contradiction that the state never resolves. In fact, they are not resolving anything, these people. At times, they want us to believe these people had a long-standing relationship. If that were true, where is the history? Where are the repeated interactions, the established trust, the communication? Where are all of those things, by the way? Then suddenly, when the evidence doesn't exist, the story shifts. Now it's simplified. Now it's being simplified, and and Baloyi is also implying this may have been a once-off arrangement of some sort. That's how it sounds like, okay, at this point. But if it was a once-off, then the answer is, how did the strangers instantly trust each other with something this serious? The murder of Senzo Meyiwa. Who introduced whom? Why is there no prior contact at all? Even with the mastermind, there is no contact. The so-called mastermind, Kelly Khumalo, there is no contact. The state refuses to choose a version. Refuses to choose a version and stick with it, guys. Oh, they refuse. I'm telling you, they refuse to choose, because choosing one exposes the weakness of the other. That's not proof. That's narrative flexibility, and it's not helping anyone. And the courts don't convict on flexible stories because we are busy with a bedtime story here. Now let's talk about timing, because timing tells the truth. After the fact, guys, much of the so-called linkage only appears after the arrest, after the fact, after the crime, after the damage is done. But you cannot use you cannot use post-arrest events to prove pre-crime intent. You can't do that. You cannot reverse time and build a conspiracy backwards. You can't do that. That's not how logic works. That's not how law works. When a case runs backward, it signals that the evidence didn't exist when it mattered. So it was created to fill the gap. And that is textbook source of reasonable doubt, Kesan. Then we arrive at the cell phone evidence, the backbone of the so-called state case, and it collapses under scrutiny. Phones are moving while an accused person are in custody. Voicemails are presented as active calls. Undefined data is relied upon as if it's precise. But a phone does not equal a person. Same, that's the judge, he said it when it comes to accused number 3's phone. If the phone is not in the accused person's possession, then the data cannot reliably represent the accused actions. It can't. That is not a technical issue. That is a fundamental reliability problem. And unreliable evidence cannot support conviction. So what is the state left with? What we are left with is not proof. We are left with inference that is being drawn by law. If you look that way or you look this way, if you assume this means that, if you infer that, but criminal law does not operate on if. It operates on certainty beyond reasonable doubt, especially in a case as serious and emotionally charged as the killing of Senzo Meyiwa, a soccer star. The law demands discipline, not storytelling. And this is why the case feels stitched together, because real evidence explains itself. It flows naturally. It doesn't need constant narration to survive. Here at Baloyi, the evidence must be continuously framed, reframed, and rescued. That is not strength. That means the case is fragile. Everything is fragile. The state has not shown who knew whom, how coordination happened, how communication occurred, why these individuals should be treated as a unit rather than separate people. What exists is an assumption, indirect links. What we have is assumptions, indirect links, and after the fact connections. That is not proof. That is reasonable doubt. And in a court of law, reasonable doubt is not technicality. It is a line that protects justice itself. That is why we need Judge Rata to deal with this case accordingly. What are your thoughts when it comes to this? Let's talk comment section. I want to hear your views. Thank you so much. I'll see you on our next video. Bye-bye.